Sophie posted this video of her in red having a moment on the court.
That exact moment. In Fever Red, Sophie Cunningham shares a throwback. In response, Caitlin Clark uses 3 words. The moment has come to run it back. It's fairly easy. However, Sophie responded, only if you cuddle and make me dinner twice a week. We must first discuss why this seemingly lighthearted interaction has turned into a crucial financial decision for Indiana's front office before delving into what this actually means for the Fever's roster composition. Because there is a situation going on behind the scenes that has nothing to do with what occurs on the court and could cost the Fever one of their most prized assets.
Been a while since we just talked straight Fever action, but free agency is leaving a lot of questions. Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe Bibby probably won't be on this team, although I wish we could figure out how to get Red back on the team. Yeah, I would appreciate that. As always, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you check to see if you're still subscribed. YouTube is still.
There is no free agency. The CBA talks are in their second month and still haven't been resolved. We are aware that there will be 50 to 54 games this season, compared to 44 last year. However, this is the topic that no one is discussing. The expansion draft rules are quite obvious. Indiana must defend its key players from Toronto and Portland. Additionally, most expansion drafts use 5 or 6 players as the normal protection number. That's all. Smith, Hall, Boston, and Clark are locks. The Fever are looking at 1 or 2 protection slots for everyone else because there are 4 spots. And that's where things get sticky because unrestricted free agents Sophie Cunningham and Kelsey Mitchell have both openly expressed they want to return to this.
Many Indiana Fever fans want nothing more than for their team to bring Sophie Cunningham back in free agency this winter, whenever the WNBA league office and its players agree to a new CBA. Of course, Cunningham isn't the only member of the Indiana 2025 team that fans are clamoring to bring back, as Kelsey Mitchell is just as beloved among the fan base.
First, let's deal with the big issue. That Instagram exchanges comment area quickly turned into what you could anticipate from some WNBA social media sites. In response to a joke between teammates, someone genuinely posted, "Has Caitlin Clark ever cheated on her boyfriend, Connor?" The reality of covering this league is as follows. A portion of the fan base will attempt to fabricate a story that has nothing to do with basketball if 2 players engage in typical, lighthearted conversation. Caitlin Clark is in a committed partnership. Sophie Cunningham identifies as straight. On social media, their friends and former teammates are making jokes. That's all. Let's move on.
Crap. And for some of us, we appreciate that. Where was the rest of y'all? And yeah, y'all all going to keep getting called out until you show that fire. The good news is Indiana doesn't necessarily have to choose when it comes to getting Cunningham or Mitchell. Both players have expressed interest in returning. The Fever's front office will have enough money and flexibility to re-sign them, both if they so desire. Well, here's the problem.
From the perspective of roster construction, this is what's important. According to Google's year-end data, Sophie Cunningham was the second most searched female athlete in America in 2024. Not second in the WNBA, but second among all female athletes nationwide. On the Volume Network, she has a podcast. She frequently appears on important media outlets. Beyond basketball, she has developed a sincere fan base. This is the crucial portion. She spent just 1 season on the Fever. Consider that. She became the second most sought-after female athlete in America after just 1 year in Indiana. That goes beyond her character. That's what playing with Caitlin Clark offers.
They have to protect her. If they leave her out there to be drafted, just from a pure marketing and business standpoint, if you're a new franchise, you draft her first thing. because she's one of the few players in this league that's got a fan base. That's all there is to it. Has her own high profile podcast on the Volume. And she's in.
However, neither marketing report or Google search data includes this additional factor. Watch the video of Caitlin Clark getting hit during the previous season. The league's top star was the only Fever player who often stood up physically when she was knocked down and opponents were making cheap jabs at her. The only teammate who would genuinely confront someone and stand up for Clark on the court was Sophie Cunningham. Do it on the spot rather than just discussing it in post-game interviews. That is significant in ways that are not visible on a stat sheet. Team dynamics, the ethos of a locker room, and the readiness to support your best players in times of physical conflict. Although the Fever had players with higher stats than Cunningham, none of them contributed that particular quality.
And here is this. Has Caitlin Clark ever cheated on her boyfriend Connor? Guys, I'm not justifying hitting that. Wow. Even the fans, I mean, we found this out. The fans of this league, God, they're ate up with agenda. Always got to make something, of course. You see that. They want to make this into a Sophie and Caitlin. They're clowning around with each other.
This is where the Fever front office must take a calculated gamble. So let's play out the expansion draft scenario. Indiana must safeguard both Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham if they both quit prior to the expansion draft. 2 of their 5 or 6 protection slots are consumed by that. Here's an alternative, though. What happens if they don't protect Sophie, presuming they are unable or unwilling to do so? Toronto and Portland are starting franchises from the ground up. They require players who can quickly get media attention and sell seats. Sophie Cunningham fulfills both requirements. She is a capable rotation player with real star power and commercial worth. She will undoubtedly be chosen if she is available in that expansion draft. First round, perhaps first all around.
Disappointed if Sophie Cunningham is not on this team. I can tell you that right now. I can't remember exactly how many they can protect. I think it's 6. It's 5 or 6. So, Rhodes, you're supposed to know that, really? I mean, no. I've made videos on it. I think it's 5 or 6, but I'm not going to look it up because I just brought it up impromptu. Tell me what you think. Sophie and Caitlin, I feel like have to run it back.
This is especially important for the Fever's decision-making process because of the following. This goes beyond the fact that West Sophie Cunningham is a superior player to anyone else they might leave unguarded. This is about comprehending the expansion draft's commercial realities. Recognizable names are necessary for new franchises. They require athletes who can spark media attention and audience interest right away. They need someone who can go on local podcasts and radio programs and genuinely attract listeners. Toronto and Portland are joining a league where Caitlin Clark recently set records for TV viewership and attendance. They are viewing a scene where in WNBA history, star power and media presence are more important than ever. Sophie Cunningham is a prime example of the kind of asset expansion that clubs look for. The Fever must compare that to their on-court requirements. Kelsey Mitchell has been the team's most reliable scorer for years, averaging 17 points per game last season. She is the first priority, but the business and basketball decisions may diverge if Indiana is only able to protect one of their unrestricted free players. The superior player is Mitchell, because she adds components that are more difficult to replace in free agency or the draft. Cunningham may be the biggest loss if she ends up in Portland or Toronto. Additionally, there's the Caitlin Clark element. It wasn't just lighthearted conversation on Instagram. It was a signal for the general population. Clark desires Sophie's return. She has made that quite evident. The preferences of the franchise players are important. You pay attention if your generational talent tells you that she wants a particular teammate back. Not only does it make your celebrity happy, but it also helps her see aspects of team chemistry and fit that may not be immediately apparent. Examine Sophie's influence last season that went beyond the box score. From a chaotic lottery team, the the Fever transformed into a playoff club. Clark's arrival was a part of that. Aaliyah Boston's growth was a contributing factor, but veterans like Cunningham, who didn't need to be the center of attention and knew how to play alongside a ball-dominant guard. She assumed leadership. She opened three. She used physical defense. She exuded enthusiasm from the bench. When it comes to a young star, those are precisely the attributes you want. Here, too, the time frame is important. The CBA must be finalized before free agency can begin. The salary limit system and revenue sharing are the main points of contention in the CBA discussions. Nobody is certain when that will be settled. Maybe next week, maybe next month. However, if it does occur, there will be a shortened free agency period, which will be followed right after by the creation of an expansion draft. The Fever cannot afford to wait and observe how the market develops. They must swiftly decide who they are prepared to risk losing and who they are prioritizing. This is an additional perspective that is not sufficiently explored. What would happen if Sophie moved to Portland or Toronto and rose to prominence on her own? At the age of 28, she is in her prime and has a track record of attracting media attention and fan interaction. She could definitely make a name for herself if given a prominent position on an expansion squad that is creating an identity from the ground up. Perhaps not as an all-first-team WNBA player, but rather as a fan favorite who boosts ticket sales and sells jerseys. That is worthwhile. Additionally, if the Fever failed to defend her, they risked losing her in the expansion draft or letting her walk for nothing. A lost chance that can come back to haunt them for years. The counterargument is simple. The Fever are unable to base their roster on social media participation and reaction. Winning basketball games must be their top priority. Kelsey Mitchell scores more goals. Last season, Lexi Hall made significant progress. KDL Sampson is a skilled shooter. Veteran leadership is provided by Erica Wheeler. Perhaps it's not the best course of action to leave one of those players vulnerable in order to safeguard Sophie. Decisions on basketball should be made based on basketball value rather than podcast downloads and Instagram likes. However, there is a problem with contemporary professional sports. The distinction between entertainment value and basketball value is more hazy than it has ever been. The WNBA has secured a $200 million annual television contract, up from $50 million. Playoff drama or competitive balance were not the driving forces behind that growth. It was propelled by Caitlin Clark's unparalleled popular prominence and record ratings. At last, the league is being compensated for its entertainment value rather than just the caliber of its basketball. A player like Sophie Cunningham, who contributes real media attention and fan interaction, is more valuable in that setting than conventional measures indicate. What does this mean for the Fever? Every front desk employee despises the choice they must make, selecting a decent option when there isn't a definite right solution. Mitchell and Cunningham should both resign. Safeguard both of them and run the risk of losing another important member of the expansion. Set priorities. Because of Sophie's off-court value and her relationship with Clark, Mitchell allowed her to test free agency in the hopes that she would either resign, not be picked up by Portland or Toronto, or make the bold decision to lock her up, even if doing so requires making a tough choice somewhere else on the roster. This is what we are certain of. Sophie Cunningham is what Caitlin Clark desires. The fan base desires Sophie's return. Sophie longs to return. Whether the front desk appreciates her contributions enough to make it happen is the question. Additionally, if they fail to do so, allow her to walk or leave her unguarded, and they had better be correct about the person they selected if she ends up in Portland or Toronto. Because it's a public relations headache that lasts for years if Sophie Cunningham becomes a fan favorite in another city while the Fever are attempting to justify why they didn't retain her. Eventually, the CBA will be completed. There will be free agency. There will be an expansion draft. And when it happens, we'll learn just how the Indiana Fever prioritize team cohesiveness, franchise player preference, off-court marketability, and on-court production. Sophie Cunningham is a representative of all four, and the smart money is they manage to retain her, but in a league where business choices don't always coincide with common sense. Until the contract is signed, nothing is assured. What should the Fever do, in your opinion? Will you risk losing someone else in order to protect Sophie? Let's give free agency a try and hope for the best. Or is this entire debate exaggerated because she is really a supporting character who gained prominence by acting alongside Caitlin Clark? Please share your thoughts in the comment section, since this choice will either define Indiana's off-season or